Hi, I'm Ingo from Roast Rebels, and this is a quick start video for people that newly own a Aillio Bullet coffee roaster. This video will be divided in 5 parts. In the first one, I will introduce you to the machine. I will describe which are the different parts of the machine, what they are used for. In the second part, I will go into the accessories, what will come with the roaster, so that you get an understanding of what is delivered with the roaster, and you can also check if you got everything that you supposed to get. In the third part then, we will have a look at what to do when you newly have a roaster, so things that you have to check in advance, that you can be sure that the roaster is in a perfect condition. Then number 4 will be how to assemble everything and how to prepare the roaster for your first roast. And in the 5th part, I will go through the settings menu of the display. I will, in this video, not go through a full roast cycle. This will be in a separate video that you will find on our channel as well. In this video, it's really about the settings menu so that you get an understanding what you can change there. So I would say, let's start. When you have a look at the roaster, you see quite obviously there is a large part which is made of steel. And in this part here, you see that the part here is made of plastic. Here is the panel and the opening of the roaster. But in this region, there is the roast drum. It's a massive carbon steel drum with 5.9 liter capacity, which is nearly the size, the length of the machine. Not exactly, because there is also then the motor and the parts that are driving the drum, but also in diameter, it's more or less the size of the roaster. So quite a large roast drum. And heated is the roaster by induction. And also on the whole length of the roaster, there is the induction, which is heating the roast drum. And it's pretty nice that you have a wide induction like this, because like this, you have really an equal and an even heat production all over the roast drum, which is, of course, a beautiful thing. The airflow is working like that. You have 2 inlets, one in the front here, below the door, and one in the back of the roaster. The air from the front is sucked through the bottom part of the roaster and is heated here, and then it's mixed with the air that is coming from the back part of the roaster. So it's a mixture of temperature, because this air here is still cold. And then the air is led through the roast chamber, which then leads to the convective heat transfer, the airflow that you need in a roast process, of course. At the end, then it's sucked here on top of the roaster back, so outside of the roast drum, and then is released into the chaff collector at this part, and at the end it's being released out of the roaster at one outlet. This is a pretty nice thing, that all the air and smoke is being released by one outlet, because like this, the whole smoke can be canalized and you can do an exhaust system for the roaster, because the roaster, of course, is producing quite a lot of smoke. Especially if you want to roast indoor, then you need some kind of exhaust system. You can put the roaster below a kitchen vent, but also there are systems for exhaust solutions in the owner manual of Aillio. They also prepared some parts that you can print with a D3 printer. You find the construction, you find the manuals for this also on the Aillio website. But also there are a lot of discussion in Aillio groups, in coffee boards, where people share experience about their constructions. There are a lot of discussions about these exhaust solutions. So if you want to have one, have a look there and discuss with the people. They can really help you a lot with this. Here in front of the roaster, you see the coffee cooler. This one is not fixed to the roaster. It's movable. It's an electric vent, actually, which is sucking the air out of the cooling tray This is important because like this, the chaffs will not fly around your kitchen. They will be sucked into the cooling box, which has to be cleaned then after your roasts. The cooling box is connected to the roaster here with this cable. You have a tray that you can take out and nicely clean, or you can also have more of these trays if you want to do consecutive roasts. And here in the cool box, you see at the back the vent, which is covered by this filter. This is important because there are quite some chaffs being released in the cooling tray, and with this filter installed here, the vent will not be as dirty as without this filter. So the filter has to be put here. The vent is sucking the air out of the cooling tray. And what you will realize when you do roasts, that not all chaffs will be released through the chaff collector. There will be also quite some chaff coming out here. And this part of the roaster being released in the cooling tray, this is quite normal. Some people are, even before they're releasing the coffee, are putting away the chaffs or are putting a little glass or a cup or something below here to collect the chaff before the coffee is being released in the cooling tray. But what I just recommend you is that you put the cooling tray as close as possible to the roaster. Here on back of the roaster you can see the chaff collector, and the chaff collector can be opened by tearing this little metal plate here, which is actually quite difficult. So what I did was putting, these rings that you have on your key holder through the ring, through the hole of this metal plate, and this makes it much, much easier to tear and open the chaff collector. If you have a look at the chaff collector or at this whole part of the roaster, then you see this outlet above here where the hot air is being sucked out of the roaster by this little vent here. It's being led through this hole in the chaff collector. So the chaffs are mainly within this chaff collector here, and you can take them out by opening it at the bottom, then shaking out all your chaffs and closing it again. Also here is a little filter that you can from time to time take out, clean, and then put it back again in the roaster very carefully so that it's behind this rubber insulation. And here you can see the vent, which is now taking the air and releasing it through the roaster through this hole here. This one here is the pulley for the roast drum, which is then translating the power of the motor to the roast drum. If you have a look at the front of the roaster, then you can see here the display, so the interface where you do your commands, where you can control the roast and where you also get all the necessary information. If you're roasting manually without the computer, otherwise you can also always connect the roaster to your PC, to your Mac, and then use the roast time software, which is quite a nice software. You see on the panel there are two USB ports, and this can be sometimes a bit misleading. There is one classic side that you know, like a larger USB port at the bottom of the roaster. This one is not for connecting the roaster to your computer. This one is for installing this one here, which is a LED light to lighten your beans. Very nice thing, I have to say. And you just put it here in this USB port, and if the power of the roaster would now be on, then this light would lighten here the coffee beans. At the back of this panel you will find a small USB, and with the roaster you will get this cable here, and here you see the small USB which you can then connect to the roaster in this port here, and the large one you connect to your computer. Aillio has two ways of measuring the temperature. One that they invented and introduced, which is a really nice feature. It's called the the IBTS, so infrared beam temperature sensor. And the infrared beam temperature sensor is located here, back of the panel, and then it's measuring from the outside to the inside. So when the roaster is in preheat phase, it's measuring the drum temperature. When the roaster is roasting, then it's measuring the surface, it's measuring the temperature of the beans. It's a nice feature because it's a very fast and precise way of measuring the temperature. Nevertheless, there is also a classical beam probe, an NTC beam probe, which then gives you information that is more similar to the ways commonly drum roasters are measuring the temperature. So it makes it easier to exchange then data with other roasters, with other roasting machines. And this one is actually located here, so on the opposite side of the dryer, a tiny bit lower, and it's then measuring from the front inside to the roast chamber where the beans are moving and measuring here the bean temperature. The Aillio Bullet doesn't have an environmental temperature probe, which a lot of drum roasters also have. It's having this classic bean probe, the NTC, and it's having the IBTS probe, which is, as I said, in the preheat phase, measuring the drum temperature, and in the roasting phase, measuring the bean temperature. And here you can find the dryer. The dryer is working like this. You can see the opening here and also a little part here, which is indicating where the opening is. So when you're not using the dryer, normal roasting process, you put it in that way that the opening is looking downwards, because you don't want to have any beans being hauled in the dryer and being burned here. So you put it downwards, and when you're taking probes, you're putting it upwards. So usually looking downwards, then you're taking your probe, put it upwards, taking a bean, checking the color of the bean, and then turning it again downwards and moving it a little bit so that the beans are getting out of the dryer. This one here is the opening to release the beans out of the roaster. You open it manually, so it's not automatic, it's manually. You can open it and hold it until the beans are being released out of the roaster in the cooler. You see, you cannot open it fully. It's touching the dryer, but this is not a problem. It's enough to release the beans nicely out of the roaster. When you get your roaster, this one won't be installed. You have to install it, and I will show you later how to do this. And here is the opening of the roaster where you put the green beans into the roasting machine. It's usually covered by this plug. Only when you're putting the beans into your roaster, you take this funnel, put it here. There is only one position where it's nicely holding, and you have to be careful to use this position of the funnel. Put your beans in the roaster, and when it's in the roaster, close it again. So second part is the accessories, so that you can check if you received everything that you have to receive with your roaster. And so one thing is the Aillio Bullet roaster, then actually the power cord, the cooler with this cord here to connect it to the roaster, and this basket that you can take out, the funnel for the roaster, and here a set of accessories that we will have a closer look at now. With the roaster, Aillio is delivering a very nice toolkit, and in this you can find two of these USB lamps. You can find another filter for your cooling tray. You can find the USB cable to connect the roaster to your computer. This one here is the plug for the bean, green bean inlet. And here Aillio is delivering 7 tools, which is really helpful because these are the tools that are perfectly fitted for maintaining your roaster. And on this side you can find doorknob. You can find the knob for the dryer. You can find the metal part of your dryer. You find a white washer, which is important for your doorknob, and 2 screws. And what you also find are 2 metal washers. They're actually for calibrating the drum. Usually you don't need them, but keep them with you. When you have a look at the official Aillio information, they talk about 3 of these washers, but it's actually only 2. So keep them with you. When you assemble the dryer, you take the metal part, put in the screw to about the half, and then the wooden knob. Put it together and check if everything is tight. And we will have a look now at the doorknob, how to install the doorknob. When installing the doorknob at your door, there is one thing you have to take care of. The screw doesn't have to be looking out here from the door inside the drum, because like this it would touch the drum and there would be some noises coming from the drum. So it has to be here flat, and the way you do this is put it in until it's flat to the back side of the door. Take your 2.5 tool, hold it here. Then also very important, take your white washer in between the knob and the door. And now you can turn the knob on the screw and hold on the other side with the tool. Like this, you can tear it tightly, and so you have the knob perfectly installed. When you receive your roaster, there are a few things that you have to check if everything is in perfect order. So one is the drum alignment. You can see here actually the axis, and this is here you can see it's coming in front for about 1 millimeter. You can press it here and the whole thing has to move a little bit for also about 1 millimeter to the back, but then being put back in position in the front. If it's not here, if this is not working, then you open the drum here, you turn the drum until you come to this metal part which is diagonal so that you can pull it. You hold it here and you pull the drum a little bit so that it's coming in front in place. And in 9 out of 10 cases now the drum should be in perfect position. You can check it here again if everything is fine. If not, then you find an instruction in the manual what to do, but you can also directly go to your support, to the seller of the roaster, and we will in any case help you with what's to do then. So then one thing you're supposed to check according to the user manual, if these screws here at this part are tightened. This is actually the part where then the power of the motor is being translated to the roast drum. You can turn this if you open the roaster on the front and then very carefully turn the roast chamber until you reach these holes. You take the H2 tool, go into the hole and then check if the screws are tightened. Here it is. It's actually 2 screws. The second one is here. All perfect. The last thing that you are doing is then checking if the drum is rotating perfectly with no scratches, no strange sounds. And for that you have to plug in your roaster. We did this now. It's now on power. You press the PRS button twice so that the roaster is in roasting mode. You set the heater to 0 so that it's not heating, just the drum is turning. And now you can hear if there are any scratching sounds. In this case, there is nothing, all is perfect. If there is scratching sound, you, of course, you stop the roaster again and then check the position of the drum. Check here if the screw of this knob is pointing inwards to the roaster and touching here anything. If this is not the case and you have still some scratching sounds, then in best case come to the seller and we will help you what to do with the roaster. Usually it's an alignment of the pulley on the back of the drum, which is not very difficult to do, but just come back to us and ask. Now as step 4, we are preparing the roaster for your first roast. So what you do is you take the dryer, you put it in here, and as I said, with the opening to the bottom, you install the knob here at the door. Then you put this plug on the opening. You can install the USB light here by connecting it at the bottom of the panel. You install the cooler. Put it as close as possible to the roaster and then connect the plug here on the right side of the roaster when you look from front. And you can put the USB cable if you want to connect your bullet with your computer. As I said, it's on the back of the panel. And now the roaster is ready and you can plug it into the power. Now let's have a look at the settings menu. You can turn it on by pressing the F1 button, which is here. Then you see here the first position. You see always 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's the first position of the settings menu. Here, this one is called the A button. This is called the B button. And with the A button, you can change between Fahrenheit and Celsius. With F1, you can go to the next menu point, which is the voice. You may have realized that the bullet has a voice, which is helping you. I personally don't really like this and now put it on off mode. You can change it also with the A button. Challenge. It has 4 volume settings, or then the position off where you don't have the sound, the voice as well. Number 3 is the standard drum speed. So you can do settings for standard drum speed, for standard heating power, for standard preheat temperature, but actually anyway during the roasting you can change it. It's just a standard that is coming when you're starting your roast, in this case D6, so you can change the standard drum speed by pressing the plus-minus buttons. You can change the standard heat power of the heating element by pressing those buttons. You can change the standard preheat temperature. You can choose any temperature between 100 and 310 degrees Celsius. Anyway, you can do these settings also when you start the roast, but this is just the standard. If you want to use always about the same preheat temperature, then it's just a simple, helpful thing. So this is position 5. And now if you go to position 6, this is the fan alignment mode. When you have a new roaster from the newer generation, then everything is aligned, so you don't have to do anything here. But if you, for example, are taking out the fan at the back to clean it and put it in again, then it makes sense to do this fan alignment procedure, which is perfectly explained in the manual. So go to the manual, look how it's really done, because you have to do some things like taking out the chaff filter. So have a look at this. And then when you start the alignment process, you press these 2 buttons, the minus and the plus at the same time, and it takes about 5 minutes to go through this alignment process. You can then choose with the A button if you want to have not aligned settings or aligned settings. I hope this video was helpful for you. If you want to know more about the Aillio Bullet roaster, or if there are any questions left, then come back to me anytime. You find my contact on roasttravels.com.